How's it going, guys? Kyle here with 4MR Ranch, and today I'm going to go ahead and take the time to answer what seems to be a very common question lately on my laser and night vision related videos, and that is, which is better? What's the better buy? The Holosun Iris or the Laserspeed M6TR line? Now, this is not a dedicated review of either of these. There is both a fully detailed independent review of each of these units plus a torture test of both of these units. So 4 different videos, 2 for each, live on the channel right now. If you want to know as much as possible about these units, get into the nitty gritty, then I highly recommend you check out those videos. This one, I'm going to try to answer all the talking points as quickly as possible. Again, just based on how many people have been asking. So up front, I need to let you know that if you have one or the other, you don't need to sell, your Iris to get the M6TR. You don't need to sell your M6TR to get the Iris. Both of these are very good devices, so I want to put that out there up front to, if you're here just to validate your purchase that you've already made, don't worry about it. Both of these are solid. They are absolutely good value for the money. That being said, I am going to have a bit of a lighthearted point system here just to kind of tally up the pros and cons based on my personal use case. Doesn't mean that if I give a point to the Iris or the M6TR that the other one is absolutely terrible in that category. It just means in my use case, one does it a little bit better than the other. But hopefully the insights I'm sharing will let you keep your own scoring system on if that's relevant to you, important to you based on your use case. So I'm not trying to hurt feelings. If you've already invested your hard-earned money in one or the other, they're both great, but I'm gonna get into my thoughts on different categories. But before I get any further into the video, I have to give a huge shout out to the channel sponsors, Warhammer Armaments. So they do carry things like this. They are absolute godsends when it comes to the world of night vision. I can't recommend them enough. If you are ready to take the dive into the world of night vision, they will make sure that you know exactly what you're getting and that you feel comfortable and educated before moving forward on such a big investment, such as things in the world of night vision. On top of that, there are different promotions that they run in conjunction with the channel because they are a sponsor after all. So for example, the Holosun Iris that they currently have in stock at the time of this video, if you use code 4MR, you're gonna save yourself some good coin. You get it for about $8.70 shipped, I believe. They unfortunately don't currently have the M6TR in stock, but back when they did, and I did the review of that, you also saved about $100 off of that with the code. So depending on when the time you're watching it, use discount code 4MR. Another quick shout out to Optics Planet. You guys can also save some coin over there too. Discount code 4MRR will save you 7% off site-wide. So save yourself some of that hard-earned money. Shout out to Optics Planet for helping the channel stay afloat. And last but absolutely not least is the 4MR Ranch Patrons. Now, if you guys are not aware, I'm giving something away at the first of the month every month, and it's sometimes some pretty high dollar items. Just got word I have another night vision device being sent to me in support of another giveaway. So spoiler alert there, if you guys are signed up for the 4MR Ranch Patreon, you guys have some more goodies coming your way. Thank you so much for the support. So as quickly as I can explain why these are a big deal in general, full power illuminators, AKA things that are regulated by the FDA, if you can believe that, not getting into that in this video. Previously, and we're talking a year, maybe a couple years ago, you had to try to get what was known as a gray market illuminator, meaning that it exceeded civilian limitations, doesn't make it illegal to own as a civilian, but it makes it very difficult to get because legitimate businesses are not supposed to be selling it to people without the proper credentials because FDA said that's dangerous, you could hurt your eyes or your friend's eyes. That's the explanation in a nutshell. So what's exciting is that these that would have been formerly called civilian units essentially allow you to have similar illumination capabilities as those other units that had some difficulties to acquire. So that kind of shook up the laser industry. Not everyone wanted to deal with trying to find an expensive laser via third parties or on eBay, whatever, where you may get scammed, you don't know where you're getting, and if something breaks, you're basically SOL in terms of warranty. So Laserspeed has been in the game for a while. They were making bulkier lasers previously, and the M6TR basically took their very impressive performance, especially for the money, and they finally put it into an ergonomic and small package. So that was very excited when this came out, which was about 3 to 6 months prior to the Iris finally being available, although I think the Iris was teased prior to the M6TR coming out. Nonetheless, here we are in June of 2025, recording this. These are both available now. They're both in demand, so they're sold out different places. But point being, these come in for a fraction of what you would have had to pay for higher output units, full power units, or even the expensive civilian stuff like the Wilcox Raid XE, which I love. That's a $4,000 unit. So let's talk about, first and foremost, price comparison. The Holosun Iris street price right now is 900 bucks. Like I had mentioned, with discount code 4MR at Warhammer Armaments, you actually get it for $870 shipped. So after taxes and shipping costs, $870 to your door. That is awesome compared to, again, $4,000 price tag of some of the really, really expensive stuff. The M6TR is about $1089. There are also other promotions, so let's assume you can shave it down to about $1,000. That is a fourth of the price still, roughly, to the more expensive stuff. Now, there is a M6TR-V, which is what is here on the table. It has a VCSEL-based illuminator, as does the Iris. So I'm gonna try to compare the VCSEL illuminators primarily. We'll briefly cover the other versions of the M6TR. But if you want one that comes with a white light, making it a 4-in-1 unit, which even more value there, then it's about $30 more right now. So a little over $1,100. So all that to say, very, very good price. But if we're comparing price, the Iris wins the point there. So 1 point for the Holosun Iris. Next, let's just briefly cover warranty because I think that's relevant. I had mentioned how you have a hard time getting things repaired if you get one of those gray market units. So these are answering, solving that problem in terms of this is a civilian laser that still works. The warranty is there for you, so it's relevant. As best I can interpret the Holosun website, they have a lifetime warranty for the housing and kind of the more mechanical structural components of their units. I think they actually did define switches as something that may be a wear and tear item. As best I can tell, lifetime warranty for the housing itself, and they define illuminators and LEDs as a 10-year warranty. So if I'm interpreting it right, that means 10 years for the lasers and the illuminator. If I'm wrong, grill me in the comments or I'll pin a comment if I find out I am wrong. So we're gonna call this about 10 years as best I can interpret. The M6TR has an 18-month warranty. So in terms of warranty and my interpretation, I'm gonna give the point to the Holosun Iris. Now, I can't speak to the customer service of either company. I don't really want to either because they know who I am. Both these companies know what I do in this space, so they may give me unfair treatment. So I can't really speak to that in an unbiased manner. Not that I've had issues with either unit. Okay, so form factor is going to be the next one, and it's no surprise here, but the Iris gets the point there as well. It is smaller and it is lighter. So the Iris without a battery on my scale weighed 5.5 ounces, whereas the M6TR is weighing 7.7 without a battery, but that is including the white light head. So they're similar in weight, a couple ounces. Maybe that matters, maybe it doesn't, but if we are making comparisons, the Iris does win in terms of form factor and weight. Now next, which is kind of paired with form factor, is going to be the ergonomics. So the M6TR, although drastically improved, still has dials in the rear, which is typical for most units, mind you. But so if you want to control the illumination pattern, you're going to have to hit a dial in the back. If you want to switch modes, there is also a dial that is tactile in the back. Your crane port is also rear mounted. Firing and actuation button is on top. So pretty basic layout. They didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't improve on anything per se, although it is a drastic improvement to their personal previous generations. The Iris did something a little bit novel, something new. And that is by having your power and mode switches still on the back, but having a convergence and divergence dial on top. So if you C-clamp your platform that you put this on, then you just use your thumb to control it. Now that's really only useful if you put it in a spot that is ergonomically comfortable. If you side mount it or put it weird places, then it's not gonna be as useful to you. However, I would still argue it's probably easier to find and adjust this in the dark than to feel around for the knob. Now, my issue with the rear mounted knobs is if I run switches behind this and you're working with limited real estate, it can be difficult to get to this mode dial or your illuminator control. You kind of have to feel around, or you have to try to have your switch further away, or this forward mounted, again, limited real estate. This is a little bit more of a con to me with this setup, whereas I really do enjoy, I just leave this in dual high when I'm running night vision, and if I need to change the pattern, it's on top. So in terms of ergonomics, I am again going to give the edge to the Iris for those reasons that I stated. Now, in terms of build quality, I want to make it clear that both of these are built very well. Neither one feels like a toy. They both feel very high quality, especially for the price point considered. The mounting interface has a recoil lug on both and just a simple cross bolt mechanism, which I'm very glad they didn't try to do some kind of quick detach system that has issues with different tolerances. So both mounts are good to go. They're roughly the same. The M6TR uses an Allen key style kind of hex head, whereas the Holosun Iris uses a flat head screw. My preference would be that because it's easier, less proprietary tools to use that. I would argue it's probably, you could even use a shell casing. The good news is that the size of this Allen key is not so small, it's easy to strip. So I'm gonna call it a wash. That's user preference, but something I just want to point out. In terms of build quality, the whole point that I'm trying to get across, the Iris turrets take about twice as much force to rotate, and it is much smaller increments than the M6TR's turrets, but they are both good turrets. They both pass the tracking test, so it may be user preference, but there is more resistance on the Iris for what that's worth. So that's a little bit subjective. I don't want to give it points one way or the other based on that. But one data point that I do have is that when drop testing the M6TR, there was an actual indentation in the housing, whereas the Iris only had anodizing removed from the gravel it was dropped on. There was no actual dents that were put into the housing. And just by feel and kind of tapping on things, which I know is not super scientific, I believe that the wall thickness of the Holosun is thicker than the M6TR, which is backed up by the fact that I did get a dent or ding in the M6TR from the drop test and nothing in the Iris. So build quality, although we are splitting hairs here, there is more to like about the Iris based on the testing and experiences that I've had with it. One last note, although it may not be fully fair, is that the dials on my Iris, to include the undrop tested unit I have and the drop tested, are still very tight. There's no play at all from as it came out of the box. Whereas my M6TR that was drop tested, the mode dial is starting to get a little loose. Now, I'm not sure if it's from drop testing or just the now about 2,000 rounds that I've had through it, but that is something that has not held up as well. So ultimately, all that to say, I'm gonna give the edge to the Iris in terms of build quality thus far, but both are built very, very well. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about outputs. I'm sure most of you guys are just skipping to this part of the video anyways. Just know that the advertised Laserspeed specs, in my personal experience of metering these things, again, I have a video on this unit already on the channel, but what they advertise is under what I am currently measuring in terms of output, whereas the Iris, since it is kind of following that compliance a little bit more to a T, what they advertise is kind of their maximum that you should get out of it. For example, this is a 60 milliwatt illuminator advertised. 60 milliwatt illuminator, and I got 56. Whereas the Laserspeed advertised at 30 and I got 85, but that's on the EEL. Unfortunately, at the time of filming this and recording this, my power meter is currently packed away, so I have not yet verified firsthand what I'm getting out of the VCSEL-based illuminator. I will pin a comment and or add it to the description. So just check for that based on when you're watching this. I hope to have access to my power meter once I get my pod shipping container delivered and I'm finally moved into my new home. But just know that what they advertise is a little bit under. Now that is the distinct advantage to the M6TR, because I think you're gonna get a little bit more horsepower out of it, namely when we're talking about the visible laser, because it's kind of a wash when we're talking VCSEL versus VCSEL, visually, just aiming them down range. But the visible aiming laser on the Laserspeed is twice the output. Based on my meterings, you're getting almost 10 milliwatts compared to Holosun's limit being 5. Again, that's their limit. I metered it was a 4.2. So, and I got 9.3 out of the Laserspeed on high. So roughly double. Now that's gonna make it twice as easy to see in the daylight, and it's gonna open up the number of conditions that you can use this. So if you're someone who wants to be able to verify zero during the daytime without having to wait for the evening hours when you can see the laser again, that will be a point to the M6TR in terms of output. Now, while we're talking about output, you do need to be aware there are multiple versions of the M6TR. So although we're talking about and comparing the M6TR-V mostly because it's VCSEL versus VCSEL, they do have an EEL. And if you are going to be using clip-on night vision, you probably need to stick to the EEL because it converges into a laser beam and will get you output much further than the VCSEL-based illuminator can. The VCSEL-based illuminator is going to be a much wider pattern, however. So in a nutshell, if you're going to use this within about 500 yards, I recommend just going with the VCSEL. If you think you need illumination beyond 500 yards, I'd recommend the EEL, which is now not really comparing apples to apples with the iris. So here is purely an illuminator comparison. This is the iris, as wide as it gets. 100-yard target that I'm illuminating. This is a 50. This is 200, 300. That black backdrop is 400. And then this is 500 with the strobe. So all these backdrops have a white Medusa targets silhouette for some contrast, just orienting you to what you're looking at. Here is the M6TR. Now we are comparing the VCSEL. I'm trying to keep this a 1-to-1 comparison because these are both VCSEL illuminators. So M6TR, we turn the Holosun's laser on, so we're comparing that to M6TR on the left, iris on the right. So this is as wide as the iris gets. M6TR takes the cake there. Let's go ahead and narrow M6TR first. M6TR's laser is a 5 milliwatt. The iris, I will annotate the screen because I don't remember off the top of my head. But if convergence is important to you, the iris wins convergence. Does it matter though? So here's the M6TR at 500 yards. I can clearly see that target. Iris at 500 yards converged. I can also see that target, but I believe the iris actually reduces power a little bit when it's converged to stay FDA compliant. I don't know that Laserspeed necessarily plays by the FDA rules of the United States, but neither here nor there. I would say the iris does have what appears to be more output. You can see the illuminator within the M6TR. Just giving you another look, going wider. Iris is on the right. I prefer the lower output of the iris laser. You can see you can still pick it up out to 500 yards, no problem, but it's a more precise aiming dot. Now this is the updated M6TR. This is not their crazy initial 30 milliwatt. So here's 200-yard target just for reference with the M6TR versus the iris. Much more pleasing to aim with. Personal preference, everyone's eyesight is different. Maybe you need a little bit more juice there to pick up that laser faster. So it is personal preference. But I'm just trying to give you guys some different scenarios. So here is 50-yard silhouette. This is where I think the laser bloom is going to be more evident, kind of washing out. I'm trying to keep the PVS 14 gain consistent. So probably if you're going to use it closer ranges, I'd recommend you turn it down. So there you have it. In terms of illuminators, they're both very, very clean. Just keep in mind that the M6TR, if you wanted to compare the EEL, it'll converge down to a laser beam. So if you are someone who's going to use clip-on night vision, I would say I'd probably go towards the Laserspeed's EEL and screw it. Let me, I'm out here, might as well show you. So here's the EEL from Laserspeed down to a laser. So right now using the iris just to orient you. This is a tree at 50 yards. This fence and gate is 120. This tree that is in the field behind said fence and gate is at 350, and then this tree line is at 450. So spoiler alert is that the iris can illuminate that. You can see the illuminator even on the wide setting, but especially when you converge it. And like I said, it is a half moon. So there's a lot of photonic barriers. For context, for context, here's Holosun's previous civilian line, so you can kind of see it at 50 yards. It pretty much drops off. Here's that, like I said, gate at 120. And that was as converged as it gets, so you can kind of see it there, and then no dice anything further than that. So as wide as it gets, you lose it. I mean, you see it in the foreground because it's closer, but that is why people are excited about the Iris. And honestly, rightfully so. So we're excited about the Iris, but what we're also excited about is the Laserspeed M6TR. So this is also dual high and a lot of punch all the way out to, once again, the 450-yard tree line there, and it'll converge pretty tight as well. Now this is the M6TRV, I should say. So compared to the Iris, they are fairly similar in intensity because they're both VCSEL. So Iris as wide as it goes, and now the M6TRV as wide as it goes. So M6TRV takes the cake there. So something to keep in mind. But we got something else to show you. I have the Villain Weapon Systems diffuser for both. So here is the Iris. Like I said, as wide as it'll go. And diffuser on. You'll notice everything in the foreground is now diffused. So aftermarket support exists for the Iris as well as the M6TRV. Now with Half Moon, when you use the diffuser, you're not going to get a whole lot of, I don't know if candela is the right term on the IR spectrum, but you don't get as much punch. You lose it to the photonic barriers in the environment. There you go. You can see, you can't really see the cat that well, and now you can see the cat better. So just know the illuminators for both are very capable. If you have one, you don't need to fret over it and think that you made the wrong decision and get the other, and vice versa. Both of these devices in general are phenomenal buys for the money, again, considering that much more expensive devices exist on the market. These devices are really disrupting the market, and some of the bigger names, heavy hitters that sell devices for much more money probably hate companies like these for undercutting them and frankly stealing a lot of the sales. But they both perform very, very good. I use them. Both of my units have over 2,000 rounds each, and both are holding up. Now, what I like to do is verify that the diodes are staying perfectly co-aligned, and on both of my units, they are absolutely staying perfectly co-aligned. So even though that they've now exceeded over 2,000 rounds each, the internal components appear to be holding up. If that changes, I will obviously notify you guys, but they both seem like they are very, very good and reliable units. So I don't think you are making a wrong decision one way or the other. Ultimately, I leave that up to you. Hopefully this video gives you some insights. I know I kind of had the lighthearted point system in this video. Just know that just because I gave a point to the Iris doesn't mean that the M6TR is terrible in that category. It just means that the Iris, in my use case, did it slightly better, but hopefully I shared enough insights to let you guys decide if one is better than the other or not for you. So with that, guys, let me know what you think, what you would rather run, the Holosun Iris or the M6TR in the comments below. I do want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and as always, have a good one.